Napoli, 1962. A widow household tricks passed from her nonna to her mother to her the same way they moved through kitchens in Palermo, in Bari, in the hill villages of Umbria. Number 21 cost her less than 40 lire a portion. Number 14 is a cleaning method so effective that by 1978 Italian detergent manufacturers had quietly reformulated their products to compete with it. And number 1 was so humble, so emblematic of everything La Cucina Povera ever meant, that most modern food writers will not even include it in cookbooks. It is almost free, it is almost nothing, and it is probably better than whatever you are going to eat tonight. Subscribe before we begin, because what follows might change how you think about dinner. Let us count down. 25. Pasta al burro. Campania, 1958. A pat of butter from Galbani, 30 lire. A handful of Parmigiano shavings from the end of the block. Salted pasta water, that was Kina. You cook the pasta heavily salted, you drain it, you toss it hot with cold butter and cheese until it goes glossy. 3 minutes. That was dinner for a tired mother on a Tuesday. Quiet, rich, comforting. The pasta aisle at Esselunga has over 200 shapes now. Your nonna needed 5. 24. Riso al latte. Lombardia, 1951. A cup of rice, a litre of milk from Parmalat, before Parmalat was a scandal, a pinch of sugar, a strip of lemon peel. You simmer it slow until the rice surrenders. Children ate it for merenda after school, warm, with a spoon of marmalata if there was any. It cost perhaps 120 lire for the whole pot. It fed 5. It was also, unknown to the mothers making it, a nearly perfect convalescent food. Village doctors in the Bergamasco prescribed it to children recovering from influenza well into the 1970s. 23. Pasta aglio e olio. Everywhere south of Roma, every decade since the invention of pasta. Garlic, good olive oil, a heavy pinch of peperoncino, salted pasta water. You heat the oil slow, you crush the garlic with the flat of a knife, you pull it before it browns. 300 lire for a portion in 1974, maybe less. It was what single men cooked. It was what mothers made at midnight after the children were asleep. It is also, structurally, one of the most chemically elegant dishes in human history, and nobody told the nonnas that. 22. Pane e latte. The simplest merenda in southern Italy, going back further than anyone can trace. Warm milk in a shallow bowl, torn chunks of day-old bread, a spoon of sugar on top, maybe a dab of butter. Children ate it at 4 in the afternoon before homework. It cost maybe 50 lire in 1965. Mulino Bianco sells a biscuit version of this feeling now for €3 a box. Your nonna made it from the bread that was already going stale. 21. Frittata di pasta. Napoli, specifically, though Palermo will argue. Leftover pasta from pranzo, eggs, a little cheese, whatever salumi scrap is in the fridge. You mix it cold, you pour it into a hot pan with oil, you flip it like a frittata and brown both sides. 38 lira a portion in 1962, counted carefully by Assunta herself in a notebook I will never stop thinking about. Workers took slices of this to construction sites wrapped in paper. It was the original packed lunch. It is better cold than hot. 20. Pasta e fagioli. The Veneto version uses borlotti and tagliatelle. The Campania version uses cannellini and broken spaghetti. Both versions will be defended to the death by the women who cook them. A tin of beans from Star cost 45 lire in 1963. A handful of pasta, a spoon of tomato passata from Sirio, a bay leaf, a piece of pork rind if you had one. You simmer it until the starch from the pasta thickens the bean broth into something that coats the spoon. 60 lire a portion. It is, by the measurements of any modern dietitian, a complete protein. 20. Weight. 19. Pane e pomodoro. The South's breakfast, lunch and dinner for children in summer. A thick slice of country bread rubbed hard with a halved ripe tomato until the flesh bleeds into the crumb. Salt. Olive oil from a cousin's press if you were lucky. 25 lira if you counted the bread. Children ate it on stone steps in the afternoon heat. It is the dish that taught a generation that simplicity is not the same as poverty. First pattern break. I need to stop for a moment because I have been holding something back. When people in Milano in the late 1960s talked about southern Italian food, they did not talk about it the way we talk about it now. They did not call it rustic. They did not call it authentic. They called it food for peasants. There is a reason pasta e pomodoro did not appear on restaurant menus in the industrial north until almost 1985. There is a reason northern Italian mothers hid the fact that they still cooked acqua cotta and papa al pomodoro when they invited the neighbors. The economic miracle of the 1960s did something cruel. It gave Italian families washing machines and refrigerators and cars, and in exchange, it told them their mother's food was backward. Mulino Bianco launched in 1975 and sold 2 generations of Italians on the idea that industrial biscuits were modern and Nonna's pane e zucchero was primitive. That lie is still working. Back to the countdown. 18. Papa al pomodoro, Toscana specifically. Stale Tuscan bread, ripe tomatoes, garlic, basil, olive oil, a little broth. You cook the tomatoes down, you tear the bread into the pan, you stir until the whole thing becomes a thick porridge the color of sunset. 40 lira a portion in 1967. It was what Tuscan mothers means reboiled. 75 lire a portion across 3 days. The broth gets better each time. 15. Polenta Conchia. The Alps, the Valtellina, the cold places. Polenta cooked slow for an hour, finished with butter and fontina and taleggio melted into it. 200 lire a portion in 1969. It was the food of woodcutters and alpine shepherds. It is also, spoon for spoon, one of the most calorically efficient winter meals ever invented by a pre-industrial culture. 14. And here is where I have to tell you something the cleaning aisle at Esselunga would rather you did not know. White vinegar, aceto bianco, 50 lire for a half litre in 1972. Your nonna used it for everything. Windows, floors, limescale on the taps, the inside of the washing machine, stains on cotton. She used it because it worked. It worked so well that by the late 1970s, when supermarket detergent sales stalled because every Italian household still had a bottle of aceto under the sink, the major manufacturers, including the Italian branches of Procter & Gamble, began running campaigns explicitly designed to make homemakers feel embarrassed about using vinegar. It worked. You buy a different product for every surface in your house now. She used one bottle for the whole apartment. 13. Bicarbonato di sodio. Baking soda, 30 lire box, for laundry stains, for scouring pots, for taking the smell out of the cutting board, for cleaning silver. Food scientists at Bologna have since confirmed that for 90% of household applications, bicarbonate and vinegar outperform modern branded cleaners. The levatrice in my mother's village told every new bride the same 3 words when she handed them a welcome basket. Aceto, bicarbonato, sale, 12, sapone di Marsiglia, olive oil soap made the same way for 400 years. A block cost 200 lire in 1968 and lasted 3 months. For laundry, for hand-washing delicates, for stains on shirt collars, for bathing children. It is still legal. It is still sold. Esselunga stocks it in the back corner of the cleaning aisle, behind the dash pods, which cost roughly 15 times more per wash. Opposite. They were performing miracles of economy that a trained nutritionist would describe as borderline genius, and the culture around them was telling them they were backward for it. Meanwhile, a marketing executive at Barilla in the late 60s was taking their knowledge apart, industrializing it, putting it in a blue box and selling it back to their daughters at a markup. That is what happened. That is exactly what happened. Number 10 now. 10. Pasta e ceci. Chickpea pasta, Roman style. A tin of ceci cost 35 lire in 1961. You cook them slow with rosemary and garlic. You smash half of them against the side of the pot. You throw in the broken pasta. You finish with black pepper and oil. It is the oldest prepared dish in the Italian peninsula. It predates the Romans. It is still eaten in Lazio on Tuesday nights because Tuesday is the traditional pasta e ceci day, a rhythm passed down so long that no one remembers why. 9. Uova in trippa. Eggs cooked like tripe. Sicilian. You make a thin frittata, you roll it, you slice it into strips, and you simmer those strips in tomato sauce with mint. It looks, tastes, and feels like trippa alla romana. It costs a quarter of what tripe costs. It was what Palermo mothers served on Thursday when the butcher's tripe ran out. 8. Zuppa di cipolle alla lombarda. Onion soup, Italian style, not French. A kilo of onions cost 80 lire in 1959. You cook them very slow in butter until they go brown and sweet. You add broth, you pour it over stale bread, you top with cheese, you put it under the broiler. It is one of the most satisfying things a human being can eat for under 200 lire. 7. Pancotto, bread soup, a Pugliese word and a Pugliese tradition. Stale bread, water, garlic, oil, bay leaf, salt. You cook the bread until it collapses into the water and becomes a porridge. An egg broken on top if the chickens had laid. It was eaten for dinner by farm laborers returning from the fields. It cost almost nothing. Nothing was wasted. 6. Sotolio, oil preservation. Courgettes, peppers, mushrooms, artichokes, blanched first, packed into jars with garlic and herbs, covered with olive oil, sealed. You make it in August when vegetables are cheap. You eat it in February when they are not. A jar cost maybe 200 lira to make in 1974 and lasted 6 months. Modern supermarket giardiniera is 14 euros for a small jar, 80% water and vinegar. 5. Sotsale, salt preservation. Anchovies packed in coarse salt in ceramic jars, covered with a weighted plate, left for 6 months. Olives cured the same way, capers the same way. A year's supply of anchovies cost a few hundred lira and made pasta e acciughe possible every week of the year. Muti's anchovy tubes are convenient. They are not the same thing, and your nonna would not pretend they were. 4. Brodo di ossa, bone broth from the Sunday roast bones, simmered on Monday with carrot and onion and celery, strained, frozen in small containers. Used all week as the base for risotto, for minestra, for soaking stale bread, for cooking rice. Free, completely free. It made everything else taste like something. 3rd pattern break. The thing I keep coming back to is that none of this was written down. Not really. There were cookbooks, of course, Artusi in 1891. But the real knowledge lived in kitchens, passed from nonna to daughter to granddaughter, spoken aloud while the pot bubbled. When the economic miracle moved young women out of their mothers' kitchens and into factories in Torino and offices in Milano, the chain broke. 2 generations later, we are trying to reassemble it from memory and from half-remembered Sunday dinners. That is what this countdown is. It is not a list of recipes. It is an inventory of what was almost lost. Top 3. 3. Pane e zucchero, bread and sugar, the humblest merenda in the Italian peninsula. A slice of country bread, a drizzle of olive oil, or a smear of butter, a heavy sprinkle of sugar on top. 5 lira per portion in 1955. Children ate this on doorsteps across the entire country every single afternoon. Every nonna you know, if she is southern, if she is older than 70, ate this as a child. It was joy. It was breakfast. It was enough. 2. Pane e olio, bread and oil. A thick cut of country bread, good olive oil poured over until it pools. A crush of salt. Contadini ate this in the fields at 10 in the morning. It was lunch. It was the only meal some of them had until Cena. 15 lire per portion in 1957. It is, spoon for spoon, more nutritious than whatever Mulino Bianco is selling this week. 1. Pane e pomodoro, bread and tomato. Not the one at number 19, which was the summer snack. This one is the dinner. A slice of country bread rubbed with garlic, rubbed with ripe tomato until the bread is stained red, dressed with oil and salt, eaten slowly at a table with 6 people and 1 plate. 20 lira per person in 1956. When Assunta Esposito fed her 4 children for a week on 6,500 lira, this was 3 of those dinners. It is the dish that holds everything this list has been trying to say. Simple, cheap, nourishing. Survival and love expressed through economy. Your nonna did not call it cucina povera. She called it cena. It was just dinner. Try one of these this week. Try pane e pomodoro. Try papa al pomodoro. Try pane e latte with a sleepy child at 4 in the afternoon. Do it with the cheapest ingredients you can find, because that was always the point. Come back to the comments and tell me which one surprised you. I want to know if the pane olio gets more respect than the acqua cotta. I want to know if anyone still remembers pan cotto. Your nonna was not a peasant. She was a mathematician running nutritional calculations in lira per portion under a kitchen light in Napoli in 1962. She was a chemist, stretching 200 grams of meat into 15 meatballs because the bread was the point. She was a quiet expert, and nobody gave her the word for it. She knew. Now you know too.